Why did Microsoft sunset their mixed reality headset? This is MacVoices. Next up, I'm curious to see what you all think of this one, where Windows has decided that it's going to deprecate the Windows mixed reality in their.
I didn't know they had one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Webb.
too.
I appreciate you playing Straight Man, because that was my first thing. It's like, really? Okay, you've had this. It almost feels like when they had tablets. It started out, and then they backed off from that. Has Dave? We always look to you for Windows stuff. I mean, I assume you knew about this, that it actually was a thing.
It was quite good for a while.
Yeah. I
really?
love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It did work, but this is going along the ways of Windows Mobile and the Zune that they just are just abandoning it because I just don't know, because you got Meta, you got Apple coming up with this, and others that have had them, and they may just decide to get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, HoloLens was pretty extraordinary when it was announced close to 10 years ago, but I think it's been pretty clear for a while now that it's not in Microsoft's future cards, especially now that they've announced that it's pretty much going bye-bye.
I think they're putting all their focus
definitely
on AI.
now. Yeah.
I mean, with being an AI, and I think a lot of that is just looking at all their announcements earlier, that it seems like their big focus right now. With autopilot AI and a lot of other AI stuff, and then they're coming up with their own processor that they're in the enterprise that this is not something they want to stay and be involved with.
So is this something where they see the Apple train coming down the tracks and they don't want to be tied to those tracks?
I'd be really curious, because I don't really remember a lot of the details recently, but I know that was a platform my brother was actively using for a while in his development.
I don't think it's a fear of what Apple is doing. I think this is Microsoft taking a good product and once again misreading their market and pulling out right at the point where they could start getting traction. And Windows Phone, I'm looking at you. I was never a big fan of Windows Phone, but I appreciated what Microsoft was doing, and they made solid phones. And then they got out, and they totally blew it because they got out right at the point where they could have really started picking up traction. And they're like, never mind. And now they're doing that with the headsets. And I think several years from now, we'll be seeing articles like we have seen about the whole Windows Phone thing, where people in Microsoft, like executives, are saying, yeah, that was kind of a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. And they'll be saying that at some point about their VR product.
Jeff, I admittedly I don't follow Windows that closely, except as it overlaps into the Apple universe. But were those good, solid phones? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they were really good.
Yeah.
Then
did you want a good camera? Get a Windows Phone.
Yeah.
And it was just down the line. There was so much they were doing right, even though it was Windows, and we're like, Windows. They did so much right with their phone, and then there was a big surprise, and we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, even after spending an ungodly amount of money on Nokia.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think this comes down to maybe who Microsoft is. Especially under Satya Nadella, they are not a consumer company. They are a business-to-business focused company.
Right.
So I just got the lowdown from my brother, which is why I went off camera, because he just called when I texted him to ask if this is going to impact
Nice.
him. My brother is an AR developer, and he said it turns out that it was a really good product for a while, but he's been not dependent on it for quite some time. Their flagship device is currently Magic Leap, which is also very business to business, which is fine because he's a business. And that they basically weren't really willing to go all in. And then, so they've been sort of slowly moving away from it as they were realizing that they weren't ready to go all in.
Okay, so forgive me if I'm interpreting differently, and I hear what you're saying, Britt, but it makes me wonder, okay, so why wasn't Microsoft willing to go all in if they had a great product? Because Apple's developing something that is super sexy, whether it ends up being B2B or is a lot more focused on B2C. It seems like at the moment it's more focused on B2C, but that's not necessarily the way some Apple products work out. But Meta seems to be coming on strong with their options, including the Ray-Ban smart glasses and the Meta. I can't think of the name of the Meta headsets, but I don't know. It feels like this is yet another time that Microsoft has surrendered a space. Thank you, Quest. Thank you, Ben. This is another time that Microsoft has surrendered a space because they couldn't immediately dominate it, or they couldn't throw their weight around, a la the way that they have with products like Teams.
And I don't know the answer to that, except that maybe they feel like their way is better in software, like through Microsoft Teams, have your AR meeting or VR meeting. I don't know if that's what they're thinking of doing, or if they just. I mean, it makes sense that they would call it this year when they've had such success with working with OpenAI. At least they've been looking good this year.
Maybe this plays off of the long-standing, very antagonistic approach that departments inside Microsoft have had, where you have different departments. I mean, they are fighting like cutthroat to get the funding and support for whatever their project is, and they will screw over other departments to be able to get the resources that they want. Now, I have no information at all to say that's what's happened here, but you do kind of have to wonder, maybe. I mean, could that be part of what happened? They didn't have the right manager who could be aggressive enough to get them everything they wanted. So it started to kind of slide, and like Brittany's brother was saying, and then eventually it just gets cut.
Jeff, that makes me think, though, of some of the stories we used to hear about the old Microsoft and the way that they evaluated their teams, and would cut team members no matter how good they were, because the theory seemed to be always that there was always a lower performing part of the team, and so it needed to be cut. No matter how good it was still not as good as the rest of the team. I'm oversimplifying that, but that was what it boiled down to.
Yeah, who says that's the old Microsoft and not the current one?
Yeah,
exactly. And so, it makes me wonder about if that's the case. And Jeff, I heard you, loud and clear, but that doesn't seem like that seems like a management failure as opposed to a product failure.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, from what they have done, I think the current Microsoft might be a company that kind of would like to be making money on the back end rather than controlling the front end. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if someone were to come out with a desktop alternative to Windows, I don't know if they would fight it.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That is very interesting, Ben. But wouldn't they be giving up a whole lot of, I don't know, market share? I guess that's not it, but just, I mean, one of the whole foundations of their world?
Well, it is the foundation of their world right now. It's Azure, Microsoft Office. I mean, Windows is there because there's literally no other option.
All right, Ben, to play off of what you're saying, under Steve Ballmer, the mantra was Windows everywhere. Under Satya Nadella, it's Microsoft everywhere.
Yeah.
And and that, I mean, that certainly opens up the market to a lot more people. When, I mean, yes, Windows is a dominant operating system, but there's a lot of people on Windows, or excuse me, on Mac out there, and iOS and Android, and there you go.
And they seem to be giving mostly the same resources to the Mac versions of apps as they do the Windows versions right now.
Microsoft everywhere.
Webb, you're awfully quiet, and I have to believe you have some thoughts on this.
We'll go to the VR headset first. Meta and what they're doing is still trying to figure it out. I think that the virtual reality headset is a great solution looking for a problem. And Ben, I think you've said that before, so that I don't want to raid your comment. You said that before, but I think so. Apple's coming right around the bend, but at $3,500, that's an awfully high price to entry. So I don't view it as a massive consumer product. Now, where it evolves to will be interesting. But first out of the gate, I don't know anybody on this panel that plans on getting one on an Apple Vision. And I think that the virtual headset, for lack of a better term, I think it has a place, like in architecture and some of those other high-end businesses where it could be really helpful. But as a consumer product, I'm still trying to figure that out. Maybe it'll get there. So Microsoft as an entity, and David knows much more about this than I do. I see that they spend a lot more time in and around Teams as their platform. That's what I'm noticing. And I know that my IT department is really pushing Teams as a platform. We skipped over Zoom because of some security issues. We skipped over WebEx because of some Cisco issues. And we're going full in on the Teams platform, which we've talked about here before about some of the issues that I have with the Teams and how they do their virtual backgrounds and stuff like that. So I'm just, we'll see what happens. Microsoft's getting out. They're not selling the technology; they're just going dormant on it. They may have a reason to bring it back out. I think it's more of a business to business proposition than I is a business to consumer proposition. And as David said, I think Microsoft is really concentrating more on the business side than they are on the consumer side. Yeah, if somebody needs to buy Microsoft 365 for home, they'll do it. They'll have a consumer version of that, but people are going to get that because they have another business need for it. I would suspect if they just need a word processor or they're on a Mac, they're going to be using Pages and Numbers and those applications as well. So that's some of my thoughts.
Yeah, Britt.
Yeah, I don't have anything to disagree with or comment on. I sort of said it. I mean, yeah, business to business might be the biggest use for a lot of these for a long time. And that's just, it's going to be a slow burn. But it'll have some really useful applications when we decide to jump in on it.
I still think it's looking for a killer app or a killer use. And that's the big question. And yet the journalists we see that have had the opportunity to try these out just say how blown away they are. So yeah. I'm anxious to try one out when it comes out and see what it can do and see how many of the issues that it addresses that we all have questions over.
And Apple's is going to be a slow anyway because they're just not going to have the supply. So it doesn't matter what it costs.
Well, it looks like from what I just read an article today, that it looks like they're intentionally going to limit what the original, or at least the first run production.
Yeah, the rumors, at least 4 months ago, were that they're going to be so supply constrained on the screens that go inside of it that it sort of doesn't matter how much people want them this year. It can't become that big.
Yeah, it could become highly desired. I mean, it wouldn't
desired,
be
yeah.
Wouldn't be the first product that supply couldn't meet demand.
No. But the real killer things are like Webb said. I mean, my brother's is in architecture and in construction. That's what they do. So because that's a place where it's no question. All you need is one error and you've bought the whole system, hardware and all. So
good point. Hey, I know you have to cut out at the top of the hour, so feel free to stay as long as you want. But I want to make sure I just say Happy New Year and thanks for coming.
Happy New Year! Thanks for having me. I'll just hop off right now, and you guys have a good show.
Okay, we'll see you in 2024.
See you then.
Take care.
Bye.
Hi, Britt.
Jeff, your comment in our chat room about these being seen as a gaming thing, you think that's really the way people are seeing it, just because this is a new product and we don't know what to expect of it or what will come from it?
All right. So for context, I'm talking about general consumers. Right. And what have they seen in this space already? Rhetorical question, because the answer is gaming. That's what they see the headset thing for. And which makes it just an expensive toy. So to get the average consumer on board with something like this outside of the gaming space, that's going to take time and education, which means lots of hard work for the marketing people. So yeah, if you expect, and when I say you, I mean the big you, not you specifically, Chuck. If you expect people to jump on board with something like this right away, you will be sorely disappointed. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's something that played into Microsoft's decision as well, because they didn't want to put the effort into making this or making their products appeal to a wider audience, and it just wasn't worth it anymore.
Eric?
Yeah, the only place I've pretty consistently heard interest in this is people who want larger screens or larger screen area, especially if they're working in a cube or in a small apartment or some spot where you can't put 2 or 3 large displays. They're looking at this as a way to have as much virtual desktop as they can get their hands on, without the physical problem of arrangement. And the interest was there a little bit after the announcements, and it has continued, and it continues to show up in comments in different groups about, are you getting new displays? What are you doing for displays? How do you handle multiple monitors? It keeps showing up. And that's the only group I've seen that has been consistent, that spends money on a regular basis and spends so much time online that might be enough.
Would you buy one?
I don't know yet. Partly I haven't seen it. The only thing that really bothers me is you can buy one, but it is good for one person. You can't just keep handing it to different people. Changing it through to different people is difficult. There doesn't seem to be a way where you buy this thing and then, it's a fixed amount to refit it for a second user or a third user. And my vision is bad enough that by the time I get it outfitted for me and drop in the lenses and all that, nobody else is ever going to be able to use it. I pull the lenses out and put new ones in, but I will want to see kind of how that works. I do have a couple of cases where, being able to look at 2 or 3 different boxes that have no displays on them and have a display jump up and display something, that's a neat concept. I don't know if the pricing and the software and everything will work well enough in this first revision for me to sell somebody on the concept of buying me one. And I'm not entirely sure if it's quite enough for me to look at one personally, but it's close. Closer even than maybe buying like a bunch of different headsets. Because I find I use them a little bit, but not all the time. This is a possibility. Even if it's something like looking at training and tutorial videos later at night without disturbing somebody by, having a TV going. Maybe.
So did I misinterpret your comments? Do you have headsets now?
No, I mean like earphone, even something simple like putting in earbuds or headphones or something like that. I've got a set, but I don't run around grabbing the best I can have and obsess over them, because I find a lot of times, for instance, I need to pay attention to what's going on around me, so I can put one in an ear and then I have to listen to be able to hold conversations and stuff. So putting a whole thing over my eyes and immersing myself, it's like, well, yeah, it would work. I can certainly visualize the concept, but then if I have to like only have it half on my head so that I can still see and talk to somebody, or will people be willing to interact with me with virtual eyeballs? Now, whether I could sell the concept is that, we need to experiment with this before all of our faculty go out and get it themselves. I'm willing to give it a test, but I don't know if I could support the cost quite yet. And I'm not totally sure if I'm willing to just buy it. I still think I'd love to see this for museums. I'd love to see this for a tour of national parks. I'd love to see this, for people who can't get out and travel all over the place, for them to virtually do it. But I don't know how you mix that with you get a headset for a group and then be able to let a bunch of people use it if you have to fine tune it for each person. I'm not sure. There's some logistics I am unsure of. How do you sell it to somebody else? I buy the first one and then the next one comes out and then I say, oh, I'm going to sell this, and then who pays for the lenses, and is Apple still doing it? I'm curious enough to wonder.
Yeah. I would think for a museum that this would really be more like a new kind of museum, like, because there's no point in going, just put the headset on. And I'm already watching a lot of travel vlogs on YouTube. So, I can imagine maybe, this morphs into that, but probably not at $3,500.
Yeah.
And there are also some medical and technological obstacles that will have to be overcome. I have an issue with my eyes where they do not track together normally. Active 3D, the old Active 3D, that effect would not work for me. There are people who are blind or worse in one eye. The question is, will this technology work for them, or how far away are we from having this work for them?
We won't know till we get our hands on them.
Yeah.
I was just going to make one quick comment.
Please, Webb.
And if the rumors are true, I'm still having a lot of trouble that supposedly this thing's going to be costing, well, they even announced $3,500. Plus, you got to get a pair of AirPods to go with it. That I just don't understand, but that's just me.
I don't think you have to.
You don't have to.
It's just that.
Okay.
It's just that if you do get them, they'll work together. But
and it will definitely improve the immersive experience.
Yeah,
right.
But
for that kind of money, shouldn't they just include the immersive experience? Anyway, we'll see. We'll see when it comes out.
Yeah. The MacVoices Live panel takes on a new topic next time. I'm Chuck Joyner, and I'll see you then. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.